When I think of Rush, I think of precision. Three guys with total control over their instruments, their business affairs, and their time in the studio. But in 1983, that whole foundation cracked. So today we're looking at the moment one of the greatest bands in rock and roll history flat out panicked. We're talking about the making of Grace Under Pressure. This was a recording so tense and so grueling that it pushed the band to the edge. To understand the panic, you have to look at what they were walking away from. For nearly a decade, Rush, basically, they had a fourth member, and that was their producer, Terry Brown. I did a video on the separation of Terry Brown and Rush previously, where I talk more in depth about this, but Terry basically helped guide the band from their early hard rock days all the way through the Signals album. He was more than just a producer, he was like family to them. But by 1983, Geddy, Alex, and Neil, they felt they were getting stale. They wanted a new sound and a push out of their comfort zone. So they made the tough call to part ways with Terry Brown. It was an amicable parting of ways, but it was scary for the band. For the first time in their careers, they were working without a net. They went hunting for a big name producer to help them catch that modern sort of 1980s new wave energy that they were enjoying at that time. And they did land a big producer named Steve Lillywhite. I mean, he was really a huge name at the time. He had worked with both U2 and Peter Gabriel, among others. Now, the band, they were thrilled. Their schedule was set. They had the studio time booked. And then at almost the last possible minute, Steve Lillywhite, he bailed. He decided he'd rather go produce a Simple Minds album instead. So about 2 weeks before Rush was set to start, he was gone. Now, in the recording business or in the music business, that's a serious breach of trust, and it left the band stranded. They already had the time booked at Les Studio up in Quebec in Canada, and the clock was ticking. The songs, they were written and nobody was sitting in the producer's chair. So panic started to set in. They started making calls. They were chasing anyone available who could handle a band of their technicality. They talked to Trevor Horn and to Chris Squire of Yes, but were unable to lock in anything with those two. But eventually they landed on a gentleman named Peter Henderson who'd worked on Supertramp's Breakfast in America. On paper, Peter Henderson, he was a solid choice. In the room, he was a rough fit, though. When they got into the studio with Peter Henderson, the chemistry, it just wasn't there. Obviously, they were used to Terry Brown, so there was going to be sort of a feeling out process with someone new. And, Rush, they were used to a producer who would fight them, who would challenge them and push the arrangements around. Peter Henderson, he was an excellent engineer, but he was indecisive. And he didn't have that forceful personality that you need to steer a band like Rush. So Geddy, Alex, and Neil, they basically ended up producing the record themselves while also wrestling with complicated synthesizer parts and a much darker set of songs. That pressure was crushing to them. Neil Peart was writing lyrics about the Holocaust, the Cold War, and fear itself. That music on the Grace Under Pressure album, it was dense, and the mood in the studio was suffocating. Losing Steve Lillywhite at the last second had sent the band into a full-blown panic, and now they were second-guessing every decision because they didn't have that trusted outside ear telling them when a track was actually done. They ended up working brutally long days just trying to get it right. On top of that, there was tension over the direction of the music itself. This was the era where Geddy was leaning hard into keyboards and sequencers, and Alex Lifeson, who is literally one of the best rock guitarists alive, he suddenly found himself fighting for room in the mix. The guitars on this record, they're thin and sharp and trebly. They're heavily processed just to cut through the giant wall of synthesizers. So picture it. You've got three exhausted guys, a producer who won't take charge, an argument simmering over how much keyboard is too much, and everyone trying to prove that they could survive without Terry Brown. It was a pressure cooker, to put it mildly. They finally finished the album, and it took months longer than it should have. When Grace Under Pressure was actually released and came out in 1984, it was dark, it was cold, and it was undeniably brilliant. Most fans embraced it, and it went platinum, and it proved that Rush could stand on their own without their longtime producer. And here's the part that makes it a real story. Neil Peart later said that getting thrown into that fire, being forced to figure it out alone, actually pulled the three of them closer together as a band and gave them a stronger resolve than ever before. Now, the sessions, according to reports, they were miserable, but they came out the other side tighter as a band. So this is a perfect reminder that even for a group as professional and as prepared as Rush was and is, the music business can rip the rug out from under you at a moment's notice, and it's what you do next that counts the most. So I want to hear from you guys. Where does Grace Under Pressure rank for you in the Rush catalog? I will tell you, the more I've listened to it over the years, the more I enjoy it. Do you hear the tension in the music that was going on during the recording sessions? Let me know in the comments below. And please make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you want more stories about the behind-the-scenes chaos that shapes our favorite albums, check out my book, Near Miss, Alternate Histories of Rock's Greatest Personnel Decisions. It's available on Amazon, and I put the link right down in the description box for you to check it out. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.